The story begins on a cold winter morning in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The streets were lined with frost-covered trees, and the air carried a crispness that made everyone bundle up tightly. Inside a cozy little house, Sarah sat nervously, on the edge of her bed, clutching her husband Michael's hand. For years they had dreamed of this moment, becoming parents, but their journey to parenthood had been anything but easy. Sarah and Michael had faced heartbreak after heartbreak. There were countless doctor visits, sleepless nights filled with worry, and tears shed over failed attempts at starting a family. Friends and family often asked when they would have children, but those questions only added to the weight they carried. Adoption seemed like a distant possibility, but deep down both Sarah and Michael longed for the miracle of carrying and raising their own child. They never gave up hope, even when it felt like the universe was working against them. Then one day everything changed. After months of trying and praying, Sarah discovered she was pregnant. It was a moment neither of them could describe in words. Tears streamed down their faces as they hugged each other tightly, overwhelmed by joy and disbelief. This was their chance, a gift they had waited so long for. From that moment forward, every milestone felt monumental. The first ultrasound, hearing the baby's heartbeat, feeling tiny kicks, it all reminded them how precious life truly was. As Sarah's due date approached, excitement buzzed through their small community. Neighbors baked casseroles and left care packages at their doorstep. Family members called daily, eager for updates. Everyone seemed invested in welcoming the new arrival, but behind closed doors there was an undercurrent of anxiety. Sarah's pregnancy wasn't without complications. Early scans revealed that the baby was smaller than expected, and doctors warned about potential risks associated with preterm birth. Still, Sarah refused to let fear overshadow her happiness. She spoke to her unborn son every night, telling him stories about the world he would soon enter and promising to protect him no matter what. Finally, the big day arrived. It was earlier than anticipated, but Sarah went into labor during the early hours of a chilly December morning. The hospital room buzzed with activity as nurses and doctors worked tirelessly to ensure both mother and baby stayed safe. Hours passed, each one feeling longer than the last. Then, just as dawn broke and sunlight began streaming through the windows, a faint cry pierced the air. Their son had arrived. Liam weighed less than 4 pounds, his fragile body wrapped snugly in a soft blanket. He looked impossibly small, his delicate features barely visible beneath the cap placed on his head to keep him warm. Despite his size, his presence filled the room instantly. Sarah reached out trembling hands to hold him for the first time, tears streaming down her face. Michael stood beside her, overcome with emotion as he stared at the tiny miracle they had created together. In that moment, none of the struggles or fears mattered. All that existed was their son, their perfect little boy. Doctors explained that Liam's premature birth meant he would need extra care. His lungs weren't fully developed, and his immune system was weak. He would spend weeks, possibly months, in the neonatal intensive care unit, NICU, where machines would help him breathe and grow stronger. Hearing these details was difficult, but Sarah and Michael didn't dwell on the challenges ahead. Instead, they focused on gratitude, for the fact that Liam was alive, for the medical team caring for him, and for the love surrounding them. Visiting Liam in the NICU became part of their daily routine. Each trip brought mixed emotions. On one hand, seeing their son hooked up to wires and monitors was heartbreaking. On the other hand, watching him fight for his life inspired awe. Every tiny movement, the way his chest rose and fell, the gentle twitch of his fingers, was a reminder of his strength. Nurses grew fond of Liam, affectionately calling him the little fighter. They assured Sarah and Michael that babies like him often surprised everyone with their resilience. Friends and family rallied around the couple during this challenging time. Meals were delivered to their home, cards poured in with messages of encouragement, and offers of help came from unexpected places. One neighbor organized a prayer circle, while another set up a fundraiser to cover mounting medical bills. These acts of kindness reinforced Sarah and Michael's belief in the goodness of people. Even strangers who heard about Liam's story sent heartfelt notes, sharing stories of their own experiences with premature babies who had grown into healthy children. Despite the support, there were moments when doubt crept in. Late at night after leaving the hospital, Sarah would lie awake wondering if Liam would ever come home. Would he grow up to run and play like other kids? Could they really give him the life he deserved? Michael tried to reassure her, reminding her of how far they'd already come. "We've faced harder things before," he said gently. "And look at him. He's still fighting." Slowly but surely, progress began to show. Liam gained weight, his breathing improved, and the machines supporting him were gradually removed. By the time spring arrived, he was strong enough to leave the hospital. The day they brought him home was nothing short of magical. Flowers bloomed outside, birds chirped cheerfully, and the sun shone brightly, as if nature itself was celebrating. Sarah decorated Liam's nursery with stars and rockets, inspired by her dream of him reaching for the skies someday. Life with Liam wasn't always easy. His early arrival meant developmental delays, frequent checkups, and occasional scares when he fell ill. But none of that mattered to Sarah and Michael. To them, he was perfection embodied, a symbol of hope, resilience, and unconditional love. As they watched him grow, they realized something profound. Liam wasn't just their son, he was their miracle. And though his journey was just beginning, they knew it would be extraordinary. Every laugh, every smile, every milestone achieved was celebrated as if it were the greatest victory. Because in many ways it was. Liam's arrival taught Sarah and Michael the true meaning of gratitude, not just for the big moments, but for the quiet, everyday blessings too. Their lives revolved around him now, and they wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Little did they know, however, that Liam's story was destined to take twists and turns far beyond what anyone could imagine. Liam's early years were a testament to the power of resilience. Though his premature birth had left him fragile, his spirit was anything but weak. From the moment he came home from the hospital, Sarah and Michael noticed something extraordinary about their son. He had an insatiable curiosity about the world around him. Even as a toddler, Liam seemed drawn to things that sparked wonder. Whether it was staring at the stars through his bedroom window or marveling at the way water flowed from a faucet, he approached life with wide-eyed fascination. As Liam grew older, his love for exploration only deepened. By the time he turned 5, he could identify constellations in the night sky just by glancing at pictures in books. His favorite pastime became lying on the grass in their backyard, pointing out Orion's belt or tracing the Big Dipper with his tiny finger. "One day," he would say confidently, "I'm going to ride a rocket and see all those stars up close." Sarah and Michael couldn't help but smile whenever they heard this bold declaration. To them, it wasn't just a child's fantasy. It was a glimpse into the boundless optimism that defined Liam. His fascination with space wasn't limited to stargazing. He loved drawing rockets and planets, filling page after page of his sketchbook with colorful designs. Some of his creations were wildly imaginative: rockets shaped like fish, spaceships with wings like birds. But each one reflected his unique perspective. Michael often joined him during these creative sessions, helping him build model rockets out of cardboard and tape. They would spend hours crafting and painting, laughing together as glue stuck to their fingers and paint smeared across the table. These moments weren't just about building toys. They were about bonding over shared dreams. Despite his enthusiasm for learning, school proved challenging for Liam. His developmental delays meant he struggled to keep up with other children academically. Simple tasks like reading aloud or solving math problems took longer for him than his classmates. At recess, he sometimes found himself sitting alone because the other kids didn't understand why he couldn't run as fast or play as hard as they did. Occasionally, teasing words reached his ears, comments about how different he was, but Liam never let them bring him down. Instead, he channeled his energy into the things he loved most: art, science, and dreaming about the future. Sarah and Michael worked tirelessly to support their son. They met regularly with teachers to discuss ways to adapt lessons so Liam could thrive. They enrolled him in extracurricular activities where he could shine, like art classes and astronomy clubs. Slowly, Liam began finding his place in the world. His artwork started gaining recognition at school fairs, earning him praise from teachers and peers alike. One year, his painting of a rocket soaring through a starry sky won first prize in a local competition. The pride on his face when he accepted the award was unforgettable, not just for Liam but for everyone who believed in him. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about Liam was his ability to inspire others. Despite the challenges he faced, he radiated kindness and positivity. Whenever someone needed encouragement, Liam was there with a smile or a kind word. If a classmate fell during recess, he'd rush over to help them up. If a friend felt sad, he'd offer to share his favorite snacks or crack jokes until they laughed. People naturally gravitated toward him, drawn by his genuine warmth and unwavering optimism. Outside of school, Liam's adventures continued to grow. Every summer, Sarah and Michael planned special outings designed to fuel his curiosity. They visited planetariums, museums, and science centers, watching in awe as Liam absorbed information like a sponge. On one memorable trip to a nearby observatory, he got to look through a powerful telescope for the first time. When he saw Saturn's rings shimmering in the distance, his eyes lit up with pure delight. "It's real," he exclaimed, turning to his parents with a grin. The stars are really there. These experiences not only broadened Liam's horizons but also strengthened his bond with his family. Sarah and Michael cherished every moment spent exploring the world alongside their son. They knew his journey wouldn't always be easy, but they were determined to make it meaningful. Together, they created traditions that celebrated Liam's passions. Birthdays became themed parties centered around space, complete with moon-shaped cakes, glow-in-the-dark decorations, and toy rockets launched into the air. Holidays were marked by late-night stargazing sessions, hot chocolate in hand as they searched for shooting stars. Even in difficult times, Liam's resilience shone brightly. There were days when illness forced him to stay indoors, unable to join his friends outside. But instead of feeling sorry for himself, he used those moments to dive deeper into his hobbies. He read books about astronauts, watched documentaries about space missions, and dreamed up new inventions. Once, while recovering from a bout of pneumonia, he designed an entire space station on paper, complete with detailed labels explaining its purpose. When Sarah asked what inspired him, he simply replied, "I want to show people we can do amazing things even when it feels impossible." Liam's determination didn't go unnoticed. Teachers began praising his work ethic, noting how he refused to give up on assignments no matter how tough they seemed. Classmates who once teased him now sought his advice on art projects or asked him questions about constellations. Slowly but surely, Liam carved out a niche for himself, a role model for perseverance and creativity. His presence reminded everyone around him that greatness isn't measured by speed or strength, but by the courage to keep moving forward. By the time Liam reached 10 years old, his dreams of becoming an astronaut had only grown stronger. He devoured every book and article he could find about space exploration, memorizing facts about planets, galaxies, and famous astronauts. His room became a shrine to his passion, filled with posters of rockets, models hanging from the ceiling, and shelves lined with books about the universe. At night, he would lie awake imagining what it might feel like to float weightlessly among the stars. "You'll get there someday," Sarah often told him, tucking him into bed. "Just keep believing." What made Liam's journey even more inspiring was the way he touched the lives of those around him. Neighbors admired his zest for life, teachers marveled at his dedication, and classmates learned valuable lessons about empathy and acceptance. Through his actions, Liam taught everyone that true strength comes from within, that no matter how many obstacles stand in your way, you can still reach for the stars if you believe in yourself. Though challenges lay ahead, Liam faced them with the same courage and optimism that had carried him through his early years. He didn't know it yet, but his story was far from over. Each chapter of his life added depth and meaning, shaping him into someone whose impact would extend far beyond his own lifetime. For now, though, he remained focused on his dreams, confident that the universe held endless possibilities for someone willing to chase them. And chase them he did, with every ounce of heart and soul he possessed. As Liam entered his teenage years, life seemed to settle into a rhythm of hope and determination. He was no longer the fragile little boy who had spent months in the NICU. Instead, he had grown into a bright, curious young man with a heart full of dreams. Yet beneath the surface of his cheerful demeanor, subtle signs began to emerge, signs that would soon change everything. It started innocently enough. At 12 years old, Liam began feeling unusually tired. No matter how much sleep he got or how many energy-boosting snacks Sarah packed for him, he couldn't shake the fatigue. At first, they chalked it up to growing pains or the stress of middle school. After all, adolescence brought its own set of challenges, and Liam had always been prone to occasional illnesses. But then came the dizziness. One afternoon, while walking home from school, Liam stumbled and nearly fell. A neighbor saw him leaning against a tree, pale and disoriented, and hurried to help. When Sarah arrived, she found her son sitting quietly, insisting he was fine but looking anything but. Concerned, Sarah and Michael took Liam to the doctor. The initial tests were inconclusive, leaving them frustrated and anxious. Over the next few months, Liam's symptoms worsened. He experienced frequent headaches, struggled to concentrate in class, and sometimes felt so weak he couldn't finish his meals. His once vibrant energy seemed to drain away, replaced by a quiet exhaustion that lingered like a shadow. Despite this, Liam tried to stay positive. "I'm just having an off day," he'd say whenever Sarah asked if he was okay. But deep down, even he knew something wasn't right. The turning point came during a family trip to the planetarium, a place that had always filled Liam with wonder. As they settled into their seats, ready to watch a show about distant galaxies, Liam suddenly doubled over in pain. His breathing became labored and his face turned ashen. Panicked, Sarah and Michael rushed him to the emergency room. For hours, doctors ran tests, their expressions growing increasingly serious. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they delivered the news that shattered Sarah and Michael's world. Liam had a rare genetic disorder that attacked his organs and immune system. The diagnosis hit them like a tidal wave. Rare diseases were complex, often poorly understood, and treatments were limited. The doctors explained that Liam's condition would progressively weaken his body, leading to organ failure over time. There was no cure, only therapies to manage symptoms and slow the disease's progression. Worst of all, they warned that Liam's life expectancy might be significantly shortened. Hearing these words felt like stepping into a nightmare. How could this happen to their son? Why now, when he had finally found his footing in life? For days afterward, Sarah and Michael wrestled with grief, anger, and fear. They wanted to shield Liam from the harsh reality of his prognosis, but hiding such monumental news felt impossible. Sitting down with him to explain the situation was one of the hardest conversations they'd ever had. Sarah held his hand tightly as tears streamed down her face while Michael struggled to find the right words. "Liam," he began softly, "the doctors found out why you've been feeling sick lately. It's something serious, but we're going to fight it together." To their astonishment, Liam reacted with remarkable calmness. Instead of breaking down or lashing out, he listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about his condition. When the conversation ended, he looked at his parents with eyes that reflected both wisdom and acceptance. "At least now we know," he said quietly. "And I can still dream, right?" Those simple words carried more weight than any speech could. In that moment, Sarah and Michael realized their son possessed a strength far beyond his years, a resilience that would guide them through the darkest days ahead. Despite the grim diagnosis, Liam refused to let despair take hold. If anything, he became even more determined to live fully. He continued attending school, though his absences grew more frequent due to medical appointments and treatments. His teachers adapted assignments to accommodate his needs, and classmates rallied around him, offering support in ways big and small. One friend organized a fundraiser to help cover medical expenses, while another created a mural of stars and rockets outside the school in Liam's honor. These acts of kindness reminded Liam and everyone else that love and community could light the way even in the bleakest times. At home, Sarah and Michael worked tirelessly to create moments of joy amidst the uncertainty. They threw themed movie nights featuring space adventures, baked Liam's favorite foods, and encouraged him to keep drawing and dreaming. His sketchbook remained a constant companion, filled with designs for futuristic spaceships and detailed maps of imaginary planets. On particularly tough days when treatments left him too weak to leave the house, Liam would retreat to his room and lose himself in his creations. Art became not just a hobby but a lifeline, a way to escape the confines of his illness and imagine a world where anything was possible. Yet there were moments when the weight of reality pressed heavily on all of them. Nights were the hardest. Sarah often lay awake, replaying the doctor's words in her mind and wondering how much time they truly had left with their son. Michael buried himself in research, searching for experimental treatments or clinical trials that might offer hope. Even Liam, for all his bravery, couldn't mask the sadness that occasionally crept into his eyes. During those times, the family leaned on each other, finding solace in shared memories and quiet conversations under the stars. One evening, as they sat together in the backyard, Liam turned to his parents with a question that caught them off guard. "Do you think people will remember me?" he asked softly. The raw vulnerability in his voice broke Sarah's heart, but she forced herself to smile. "Of course they will," she replied, pulling him close. "You've already touched so many lives, Liam. Your courage, your creativity, your kindness, they'll inspire people long after you're gone." Michael nodded, adding, "You're proof that even the shortest journeys can leave the biggest impact." Encouraged by their words, Liam decided to focus on making the most of the time he had left. He began compiling a bucket list, not because he wanted to dwell on endings, but because he wanted to celebrate beginnings. Each item on the list represented a dream or experience he hoped to fulfill. Watching a meteor shower, meeting a real astronaut, building a model rocket capable of flying high into the sky, swimming in the ocean, and planting a tree in the park. Some goals seemed ambitious, even unrealistic given his declining health, but Sarah and Michael vowed to help him achieve as many as possible. The community rallied behind them once again, eager to make Liam's wishes come true. Friends organized stargazing parties, complete with telescopes and blankets spread across the grass. Local businesses donated funds to send Liam and his family on trips to nearby beaches and observatories. One day, a retired astronaut visited their home, sharing stories of space missions and answering Liam's endless questions with patience and admiration. Watching Liam's face light up during these moments filled Sarah and Michael with bittersweet gratitude. Though they knew his journey was finite, they cherished every second of happiness he experienced. Through it all, Liam remained steadfast in his belief that life was meant to be lived boldly and fully. He didn't shy away from talking about death either, not out of fear but out of a desire to embrace honesty. "Everybody has to go sometime," he told his parents matter-of-factly, "but I want to make sure I leave something good behind." Inspired by his words, Sarah and Michael began brainstorming ways to honor his legacy. They envisioned creating a foundation dedicated to supporting families affected by rare diseases, funding research, and raising awareness. It was a daunting task, but Liam's unwavering spirit gave them the strength to move forward. As the months passed, Liam's condition continued to deteriorate. Hospital visits became routine, and pain management became a central part of his daily life. Yet even in his weakest moments, he radiated grace and gratitude. He thanked nurses for their care, hugged friends who came to visit, and never stopped dreaming about the stars. "If I can't go to space," when he joked one day, "maybe my drawings can hitch a ride someday." It was a reminder that despite everything, Liam's imagination remained limitless. By the time Liam turned 14, his bucket list had transformed from a personal mission into a source of inspiration for others. People from all walks of life reached out to share how his story had touched them. Teachers wrote letters praising his resilience, strangers sent heartfelt messages of encouragement, and organizations offered resources to support his family. What had started as a private battle had blossomed into a movement fueled by love, hope, and the unyielding power of a young boy's dreams. Though the road ahead remained uncertain, one thing was clear. Liam's presence had changed the world around him. He had taught everyone he met the importance of living with purpose, loving deeply and chasing dreams, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. And as the stars twinkled above, casting their eternal glow, Liam looked up and smiled, knowing that his journey was far from ordinary. It was extraordinary. As Liam approached his teenage years, his determination to live fully despite his illness became even more pronounced. Armed with his bucket list, a collection of dreams both grand and simple, he set out to make the most of every moment he had left. For Sarah and Michael, watching their son embrace life with such courage was both inspiring and heartbreaking. They knew time was slipping away, but they refused to let sadness overshadow the joy Liam brought into their lives. Instead, they threw themselves into helping him check off each item on his list, determined to create memories that would last a lifetime. The first big milestone on Liam's bucket list was watching a meteor shower. Ever since he was a child, he had been fascinated by the idea of shooting stars streaking across the night sky. "They're like wishes falling from heaven," he used to say. Now, with his health declining, seeing one in person felt more urgent than ever. Sarah and Michael scoured local astronomy clubs and online calendars to find the perfect opportunity. Finally, they learned about an upcoming meteor shower visible from a nearby park known for its clear skies and minimal light pollution. On the evening of the event, the entire family bundled up in warm clothes and headed to the park. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers who had heard about Liam's story joined them, bringing blankets, hot chocolate, and telescopes. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as everyone settled down on the grass, waiting for darkness to fall. When the first streak of light zipped across the sky, Liam's face lit up with pure wonder. "Did you see that?" he exclaimed, pointing toward the heavens. Over the next few hours, dozens of meteors blazed through the night, leaving trails of silver behind them. Each one sparked cheers and applause from the crowd, but for Liam it was deeply personal. "I think I just made 100 wishes," he said with a grin, clutching his sketchbook tightly. That night, under a canopy of stars, Liam felt closer to his dream of space exploration than ever before. Next on his list was meeting a real astronaut, an ambition that seemed almost too ambitious given Liam's fragile state. But fate intervened when a local news station featured his story, highlighting his passion for space and his unwavering optimism despite his condition. Moved by Liam's journey, a retired NASA astronaut named Commander Rachel Hayes reached out to offer her support. She arranged to visit Liam at home, bringing along memorabilia from her missions, patches, photos, and even a small piece of heat shield material from a spacecraft. When Commander Hayes arrived, Liam's eyes widened with awe. He peppered her with questions about zero gravity, what Earth looks like from space, and whether she'd ever seen a shooting star while orbiting the planet. She answered patiently, sharing stories of her training and missions with warmth and humor. At one point, she pulled out a photo of herself floating inside the International Space Station and handed it to Liam. "For someone who dreams so big," she said, smiling, "never stop reaching for the stars." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she watched her son beam with pride, holding the picture like it was treasure. That day, Liam didn't just meet an astronaut. He found a hero who reminded him that no dream is too far out of reach. Building a model rocket capable of flying high into the sky was another item on Liam's bucket list, and this one required teamwork. With Michael's help, Liam designed a sleek, futuristic rocket using materials they gathered from hardware stores and craft shops. Neighbors pitched in, offering tools, advice, and encouragement. On launch day, the community gathered at an open field to witness the culmination of weeks of effort. As Liam stood beside his creation, holding the remote control, anticipation filled the air. When the countdown reached 0 and the rocket soared into the sky, cheers erupted all around. It climbed higher and higher until it disappeared into the clouds, leaving behind a trail of smoke. Liam laughed with delight, throwing his arms around Michael. "We did it!" he shouted. "It's flying!" Swimming in the ocean was a simpler yet equally meaningful goal. Growing up, Liam had always loved water, but frequent hospital visits and weakened muscles made swimming difficult. Determined to fulfill this wish, Sarah and Michael planned a trip to a nearby beach known for its calm waves. They rented a wheelchair-accessible boardwalk and enlisted the help of lifeguards to ensure Liam's safety. On the day of the outing, the sun shone brightly, and the sound of seagulls filled the air. As Liam dipped his toes into the cool water for the first time, his expression shifted from nervousness to pure bliss. "It feels like magic," he whispered, looking out at the endless horizon. For a brief moment, he forgot about his illness and simply enjoyed being alive. Planting a tree in the park was perhaps the most symbolic item on Liam's list. It represented growth, resilience, and the idea that life continues even after we're gone. The family chose a cherry blossom tree, its delicate pink flowers symbolizing hope and renewal. On planting day, friends, teachers, and classmates joined them in the park, digging the hole and carefully placing the sapling into the ground. As Liam poured soil over the roots, he shared his thoughts with the group. "This tree will grow tall and strong, just like my dreams," he said, "and maybe someday people will sit under it and look up at the stars." Throughout these experiences, Liam's spirit remained unshakable. Even as his body grew weaker, his mind stayed sharp, and his heart overflowed with gratitude. He thanked everyone who helped him along the way, from doctors and nurses to neighbors and strangers. His positivity was infectious, reminding those around him to cherish the present moment and never take anything for granted. "Life isn't about how long you live," he often said. "It's about how much you love and how much you give back." Sarah and Michael marveled at their son's ability to inspire others. People who had never met Liam began sending letters, sharing how his story encouraged them to pursue their own dreams or reconnect with loved ones. Teachers incorporated his message of resilience into their lessons, and local organizations launched initiatives to raise awareness about rare diseases. What started as a personal mission to fulfill a bucket list evolved into a movement that touched countless lives. Yet amid the celebrations and triumphs, there were quiet moments of reflection. Late at night, when the house was still, Liam would sit by his window, staring at the stars. Sometimes he'd sketch new designs for rockets or write down thoughts in a journal. Other times, he'd talk to his parents about his fears and hopes. "I know I won't be here forever," he admitted one evening. "But I want people to remember me not because I was sick, but because I tried to make the world a little brighter." Sarah hugged him tightly, promising that his legacy would endure long after he was gone. By the time Liam turned 16, his bucket list had become a testament to the power of living fully, even in the face of adversity. Every checked-off item wasn't just a memory, it was proof that dreams could come true no matter how fleeting life might be. His journey inspired others to chase their passions, embrace kindness, and find beauty in the ordinary. Though the road ahead remained uncertain, Liam faced it with the same grace and optimism that had defined his entire life. To him, every sunrise was a gift, every laugh a victory, and every star a reminder that the universe held infinite possibilities, even for someone whose time on Earth was limited. As Liam entered his late teens, the weight of his illness became impossible to ignore. His body, once filled with boundless energy and curiosity, now struggled to keep up with even the simplest tasks. Walking short distances left him breathless, and fatigue clung to him like a shadow he couldn't escape. Yet despite the physical toll, his spirit remained unbroken. He continued to smile, to dream, and to inspire those around him. But as much as Liam tried to focus on living fully, the reality of his condition loomed larger with each passing day. By the time Liam turned 18, the disease had progressed significantly. Hospital visits became more frequent, and treatments that once offered relief now provided only fleeting comfort. Sarah and Michael watched helplessly as their son grew weaker, his once vibrant presence dimmed by pain and exhaustion. Still, they refused to let despair take hold. Instead, they poured every ounce of love and effort into making Liam's final days as meaningful as possible. They knew time was slipping away, but they vowed to cherish every moment they had left together. 'One of Liam's last wishes was to celebrate his birthday under the stars. a fitting tribute for someone who had spent his life gazing at the heavens and dreaming of space. With the help of friends, family, and neighbors, Sarah and Michael organized a small gathering in their backyard. They decorated the area with twinkling fairy lights, lanterns, and posters of constellations. A local astronomy club brought telescopes, setting them up so guests could peer at distant galaxies and planets. The evening air was cool, carrying the scent of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass, creating an atmosphere of quiet magic. As night fell, people gathered around Liam, sharing stories, laughter, and tears. Friends recounted memories of his kindness and humor, while teachers spoke of his resilience and creativity. One neighbor read a poem she had written in his honor, its words capturing the essence of Liam's spirit. A star too bright to fade, a heart too brave to break. When it was time to release glowing lanterns into the sky, everyone joined hands, forming a circle around Liam. As the lanterns ascended, casting soft light over the crowd, Liam whispered to his mother, "This is perfect." The celebration wasn't just for Liam. It was for everyone whose life he had touched. For Sarah and Michael, it was a reminder of how far they had come since the day Liam was born, fragile and fighting for his life in the NICU. For his friends, it was a chance to say goodbye in a way that honored his dreams and passions. And for the wider community, it was a testament to the power of love and unity in the face of loss. That night, beneath a sky dotted with stars and lanterns, Liam felt surrounded by warmth and gratitude, not sadness or fear. In the weeks that followed, Liam's health declined rapidly. Pain became a constant companion, and even simple pleasures, like sketching or stargazing, required immense effort. Yet through it all, he maintained his remarkable grace. On particularly difficult days, when breathing felt like climbing a mountain, Liam would ask Sarah to read aloud from his favorite books about space exploration. Other times he'd request music, soft melodies that reminded him of the calmness of the cosmos. "It's okay," he'd say whenever Sarah or Michael broke down in tears. "I'm not scared." Liam's final days were spent surrounded by love. Family members took turns sitting by his bedside, holding his hand and sharing memories. Old photographs were brought out, sparking laughter and nostalgia. His childhood drawings of rockets and planets were displayed proudly on the walls, a visual timeline of his lifelong passion. Even in his weakest moments, Liam found ways to express gratitude. He thanked the nurses who cared for him, hugged his parents tightly, and told his younger cousins how proud he was of them. On one particularly poignant afternoon, Liam asked Michael to bring him his sketchbook. Though his hands trembled and his strength was nearly gone, he managed to draw one last picture, a rocket soaring toward a cluster of stars. Beneath it, he wrote a single sentence: "Don't stop dreaming." It was a message not just for himself, but for everyone who had been part of his journey. When he showed it to Sarah, her eyes filled with tears. "You're amazing," she said, kissing his forehead. "You always have been." Liam passed away peacefully on a quiet spring morning, surrounded by loved ones. The sun filtered through the curtains, casting golden light across the room. Birds chirped outside, oblivious to the profound moment unfolding within. As Sarah held his hand and Michael whispered words of love, Liam took his last breath. Though, his departure left a void that could never be filled. There was also a sense of peace. He had lived his life with purpose, leaving behind a legacy of courage, kindness, and inspiration. In the days after Liam's death, grief settled heavily over the household. Sarah and Michael moved through their routines mechanically, struggling to comprehend a world without their son. Meals went uneaten, conversations dwindled to silence, and the house felt eerily empty without Liam's laughter echoing through its halls. Yet amid the sorrow, reminders of his impact were everywhere. Notes of condolence poured in from friends, neighbors, and even strangers who had been touched by his story. Pictures of his artwork were shared online, accompanied by heartfelt tributes. One post written by a classmate captured what so many were feeling. "Liam taught us how to live, even when we're afraid." To honor his memory, Sarah and Michael decided to turn their grief into action. inspired by Liam's unwavering optimism and love for others. They founded a foundation dedicated to supporting families affected by rare diseases. The organization focused on three key areas: funding groundbreaking research, providing financial assistance to struggling families, and raising awareness about the challenges faced by those living with chronic illnesses. Naming it Liam's Legacy, they hoped to ensure that his name would continue to shine brightly, just like the stars he adored. The launch of the foundation coincided with what would have been Liam's 19th birthday. Hundreds of people attended the event, filling a local park with music, art, and stories celebrating his life. Artists painted murals of rockets and galaxies, children released balloons shaped like stars, and speakers shared how Liam's journey had inspired them to pursue their own dreams. At the center of it all stood a plaque engraved with Liam's favorite phrase, "Don't stop dreaming." It served as a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope can guide us forward. As months turned into years, Liam's legacy continued to grow. Schools began naming scholarships after him, encouraging students to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. Local businesses donated resources to expand the foundation's reach, and medical researchers credited its funding with advancing treatments for rare genetic disorders. Perhaps most profoundly, Liam's story sparked conversations about compassion, resilience, and the importance of cherishing every moment. People who had never met him found solace in his example, using his courage as motivation to overcome their own struggles. For Sarah and Michael, keeping Liam's memory alive became both a mission and a source of healing. They visited schools to talk about his life, sharing photos, artwork, and anecdotes that highlighted his boundless curiosity and kindness. They attended conferences on rare diseases, advocating for greater support and understanding. And on quiet nights when the world felt heavy, they looked up at the stars, imagining Liam somewhere among them, free, fearless, and forever dreaming. Though Liam's journey had ended far too soon, his impact endured. He had taught everyone he met that true strength comes not from avoiding pain but from embracing it with grace and purpose. His dreams of space exploration may not have come true in the way he imagined, but in another sense, they had soared beyond measure. Through the lives he touched and the changes he inspired, Liam proved that even the shortest journeys can leave the deepest footprints. Underneath the vast, endless sky, his light continued to shine, a beacon of hope for anyone daring, enough to reach for the stars. Though Liam's physical presence was gone, his legacy continued to ripple outward, touching lives far beyond what anyone could have imagined. His story became a beacon of hope, resilience, and inspiration, a reminder that even the shortest life can leave an indelible mark on the world. For Sarah and Michael, keeping their son's memory alive wasn't just about coping with grief. It was about honoring the extraordinary person he had been and ensuring that his dreams would never fade. The foundation they created, Liam's Legacy, quickly gained momentum. What began as a small effort to support families affected by rare diseases blossomed into a nationwide movement. Local chapters sprang up in cities across the country, each one dedicated to raising awareness, funding research, and providing resources for those navigating similar challenges. The organization's mission resonated deeply with people from all walks of life, parents seeking answers, doctors striving for breakthroughs, and communities longing to make a difference. Every event hosted under its banner carried Liam's spirit: art exhibits showcasing his sketches, science fairs celebrating innovation, and stargazing nights where lanterns were released into the night sky. One of the most powerful initiatives launched by the foundation was the Dream Big Scholarship Program. Designed to encourage young people to pursue careers in STEM fields, the scholarships honored Liam's lifelong fascination with space exploration and his belief that no dream was too big to chase. Recipients weren't chosen solely based on academic achievement but also on their ability to inspire others through creativity, perseverance, and kindness, qualities that defined Liam himself. At award ceremonies, winners often spoke about how his story motivated them to push past obstacles and aim higher than they ever thought possible. Artists, too, found inspiration in Liam's journey. Murals began appearing in public spaces, vivid depictions of rockets launching toward star-filled skies accompanied by quotes like, "Don't stop dreaming," and "Even the smallest light can guide us home." One particularly striking mural adorned the side of a hospital where Liam had spent many days receiving treatment. Painted by a collective of local artists, it featured a boy reaching out toward the cosmos, surrounded by constellations and glowing lanterns. Patients, doctors, and visitors alike stopped to admire it, finding comfort in its message of hope and possibility. For Sarah and Michael, seeing their son immortalized in such a way was both heartbreaking and beautiful, a testament to the lasting impact of his brief yet remarkable life. Schools played a pivotal role in spreading Liam's legacy. Teachers incorporated his story into lessons about empathy, resilience, and following one's passions. Science classes explored topics related to space exploration, encouraging students to think critically and creatively about the universe. Art projects inspired by Liam's sketches filled classrooms, while writing assignments challenged students to reflect on how they could leave their own positive imprint on the world. In one school district, an annual Liam Day was established, featuring activities centered around kindness, curiosity, and community service. On this day, students wrote letters to individuals facing hardships, planted trees in memory of loved ones, and shared stories of people who had inspired them. It became a celebration not just of Liam's life but of the values he embodied. Perhaps the most unexpected chapter of Liam's legacy unfolded when NASA took notice of his story. Moved by his unwavering passion for space and his determination to live fully despite immense challenges, the agency decided to honor him in a unique way. A plaque bearing Liam's name and a quote from his final sketchbook, "Don't stop dreaming," was included aboard a future space mission. When the spacecraft launched into orbit, carrying scientific instruments designed to explore distant planets and galaxies, it also carried a piece of Liam's dream. For Sarah and Michael, watching the launch on television felt surreal. As the rocket ascended into the heavens, they imagined their son finally achieving the journey he had always envisioned. Not physically, but spiritually, his spirit soaring among the stars. The community that had rallied around Liam during his lifetime continued to play an active role in preserving his memory. Annual events, such as stargazing parties and charity runs, brought people together to celebrate his life and raise funds for the foundation. Friends and neighbors kept his traditions alive, organizing backyard meteor showers and planting cherry blossom trees in parks. Each act of remembrance served as a reminder that Liam's influence extended far beyond his immediate circle. Strangers who heard his story reached out with messages of gratitude, sharing how his courage had inspired them to face their own struggles with renewed strength. For Sarah and Michael, these gestures provided solace during moments of overwhelming grief. They still missed Liam fiercely, the sound of his laughter, the warmth of his hugs, the sparkle in his eyes, but they found comfort in knowing that his essence lived on in countless ways. On quiet evenings, they would sit outside, gazing at the stars and imagining him traveling among them. Sometimes they'd pull out his old sketchbook or flip through photo albums, reliving cherished memories. Other times they'd simply talk about him, recounting funny anecdotes or reflecting on the lessons he had taught them about love, resilience, and living fully. As years passed, Liam's legacy grew even more profound. Books were written about his journey, capturing his infectious optimism and the ripple effect of his short life. Documentaries aired on television, introducing his story to audiences around the world. Schools named libraries and observatories after him, ensuring that future generations would know his name. Even in places where Liam had never set foot, his impact was felt, a testament to the universal power of kindness and hope. On what would have been his 21st birthday, Sarah and Michael organized a special tribute. Hundreds gathered at a park transformed into a celestial wonderland, complete with glowing lanterns, telescopes, and displays of Liam's artwork. Children ran barefoot through fields of wildflowers, releasing balloons shaped like rockets and stars. Musicians performed, songs inspired by his story, their melodies carrying emotions too deep for words. At the center of the celebration stood a towering sculpture crafted by local artists. A lifelike depiction of Liam pointing toward the sky, his figure bathed in soft golden light. Beneath it, engraved in marble, were the words he had spoken so often: "Life isn't about how long you live. It's about how much you love and how much you give back." That night, as fireworks lit up the horizon, Sarah turned to Michael and smiled through her tears. "He's still here," she said softly. "In every star, in every dream, in every heart he touched." Michael nodded, squeezing her hand tightly. Though Liam's journey had ended, his light burned brighter than ever, a guiding force for anyone daring enough to reach for the impossible. And so, Liam's legacy endured, not as a story of loss, but as a celebration of life. He had shown the world that true greatness isn't measured by time, but by the depth of one's compassion, the breadth of one's dreams, and the courage to keep moving forward, no matter the odds. Underneath the vast, endless sky, his spirit soared freely, reminding everyone who looked up at the stars that the universe holds infinite possibilities, even for those whose journeys are cut tragically short.